Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. Dave, where have you been? Why didn't you show up? For my wedding rehearsal? Mom tried to call you 6 times. She's really mad at you. Really? And where exactly is your mother? She just left to take my father, well, my biological father, to his motel. I didn't miss how Sandy's eyes darted away from me when she said that. I continued what I was doing before my stepdaughter arrived, which was taking my certificate of appreciation off the hallway wall. What are you doing, Dave? Mom cleaned all these frames about 6 weeks ago. I barely paid attention to her and took the framed certificate to the kitchen. Sandy followed me and watched as I wrapped it in bubble wrap before packing it into an already loaded box. She turned around, the skirt of her dress swirling around her. For a moment, this sight took me back to one of the hundreds of dance recitals I attended in my childhood. Only now she wasn't dancing for Daddy, but hurrying back to the living room. I followed her immediately, carrying the packed box. Sandy's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. I could see that she had just noticed that all the wall decorations, which were exclusively mine, had disappeared from the walls, along with my souvenirs from the shelves. And if she checked, all my clothes from the wardrobe and tools from the garage. I went out the front door and was packing the box into the back seat of my car when I felt Sandy follow me and stand, watching me. She spoke in a quiet voice, a voice that trembled with the shock of what she was seeing, an event she had never even considered before. Are you leaving us? Yes. You finally noticed. I've been moving my things out for 4 days, but neither your mom nor you noticed. That should tell you something, shouldn't it? I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Dave. I've been a little preoccupied with the wedding. You will come, won't you? No, I won't. I thought my absence from the rehearsal tonight would tell you that. But why, Dad? Oh, I'm Dad. Again. How wonderful, isn't it? You stopped calling me that 3 weeks ago, remember? Sandy flinched, wrapping her arms around herself, and my old instincts kicked in. You'd better go back inside. It's cold out here. I'll call Mom first. You can try, but I suspect her phone will be off. I went back into the house, to the living room, and sat on the couch. I heard Sandy talking on the phone, clearly leaving a voicemail for Mom to call her urgently. Then she plopped into one of the soft chairs. It seemed to swallow her tiny frame. I waited for her to gather her thoughts and start the conversation. From the look on her face, I guess she didn't know where to begin. Finally, why won't you come to my wedding? You see, you already have the clues. No. From the look of confusion on her face, I could see that the extreme selfishness common to many brides had completely blinded my stepdaughter. This saddened me. I hadn't thought she was capable of such self-centeredness. I mentally shook myself. I was in a hurry to move on. I didn't have time for this, so I took charge of the conversation. Sandy, I've loved you since I first met you when you were a chubby 2-year-old with perpetually dirty fingers. I still love you, and depending on how things go, I may very well love you forever. I paused to determine the best way to continue, then decided to follow the format I used in the informing Sandy and her mother that I was leaving them. When I met your mom, she had just been abandoned by your biological father. We've told you this story often enough. He was a drunk, and after your mom caught him with another woman for the second time, she threatened to leave him if he didn't change. Instead, he got up and left you both. He abandoned you. I paused to allow Sandy to say something. She didn't, just stared at me. Shortly after that, your mom lost the house because she couldn't afford the rent. We met, fell in love, got married, and moved into this house with my 2 sons, Mike and Richard, since our old house was gone. I needed to help you. Anyway, I digress. I loved your mom and loved you. I loved you as if you were my own daughter, just as I loved my biological children. I never hesitated to take responsibility for raising you. I thought I had lost all that a month ago. Sandy must have heard the tremor in my voice during that last sentence. It brought her back from wherever she had been. You were dead. You were the best father a girl could have. Many of my friends envied me. They couldn't believe it when I told them you were just my stepfather. She stopped, covering her mouth with her hand, slightly shaken by her own words. She realized, within about 2 seconds, what had happened to me over the past month. I continued my story. I like the guy you chose as your life partner, and he was the proudest person in the world when you asked me to walk you down the aisle. I paused again to see where this conversation would start to sink into her head. I could clearly See when most of it finally hit her. She looked away again. Yes, Sandy. You never withdrew the invitation for me to walk you down the aisle, did you? But then your biological father came back into the picture and poof, I'm out. He's all yours. In your and your mother's minds and conversations, I'm yesterday's hero. Did you know that? She was so inattentive that she didn't even realize I never bought the suit for tomorrow, as she asked me to. I watched again as Sandy tried to decide which of the issues I raised to address. First, I saw the look of horror on her face when she realized she had forgotten that she had asked me, the only father she had known until last month, to walk her on her most important day. I was sure I would hear an apology for this and that it would prompt her objections. I was wrong. Instead, she confirmed her superficiality by trying to justify it all. Yes, Dave, you met my biological father. He means more to me than my life. You have to understand that. He came back into my life just last month when he found out I was getting married, and it was so wonderful, with his flashiness and how he spoils me, buying me everything I look at twice. He's just, well, what can I say? Both of us, well, Mom too, I guess, just assumed he'd walk me down the aisle. I'm sorry, I forgot that I had already asked you. It's just been like a whirlwind since he came back, which swept you off your feet, didn't it? Yes, that's exactly what he did. Admit it. He just oozes charisma. I was recently telling Mom. She stopped when she realized what she was about to say, and to whom she was about to say it. Her face was always like a shallow pond, where even the lightest breeze ruffled the surface, soon replaced by a new gust of wind. Now was no exception. Emotion after emotion flickered across her face as I realized how completely she had ignored me over the past month. I watched as she processed this. I even think I saw the exact moment when she realized her mother had been just as bad. All I had heard in my own house for the previous month was, John did this, or John said that. I had tried to show them how angry I was about all of it, but none of it was noticed. They were too far under John's spell. Yes, I saw his charisma too. I could understand why he was such a good salesman. What I didn't do, unlike my wife and stepdaughter, was fall under his influence. They were completely blind when I pointed out his broken promises 3 times. The last straw was 4 days ago when I found out I wouldn't be walking Sandy down the aisle. This revelation came only when I overheard them talking about who would be where in the church. My name wasn't even mentioned. Instead of deciding to show up and hope there was a place for me in the front pew, I started packing my things. I thought I would gently start to prepare Sandy so that future revelations wouldn't shock her. You do realize he's still a lying cheat, don't you? You know he's the same scumbag who abandoned you and your mom 20 years ago, right? He left you both back then, and as soon as he gets what he wants this time, he'll leave you again. Oh, don't be so bitter, Dad. Dave. Yes, I'm sorry I forgot to tell you that my biological father would be walking me down the aisle. That's my fault, not his. You can be mad at him and call him all sorts of nasty names. What proof do you have that he's still a womanizer? I thought through my answer once more. I feared what the response to my next question would be. I knew my 20-year marriage was dead. Had I also lost my daughter? Well, in for a penny, in for a pound, as they used to say. Where is your mom? I didn't have to hold my breath for long. Sandy's eyes left mine for a long pause. Then they continued to dart back and forth as she asked herself how deep my question went. Had I intentionally linked my question about why I thought her biological father was still a cheat with where her mother was? Without a doubt, Sandy knew. The execution was left. Whether we end our 20-year relationship in a pile of lies or preserve the memories of mutual respect we can still hold on to, I need to tell you something. This morning, I found protection in your mom's purse. What? Without a doubt, for tonight. I had a vasectomy before I met her, so they clearly weren't for me. And I know you take birth control pills, so they weren't for you. I'm glad to say the package was unopened, so she probably hasn't slept with him yet. But buying a whole pack 24 hours before his arrival indicates intent, doesn't it? I can see by your face that this news doesn't surprise you, so I can only conclude that you're complicit in your mother betraying me and our wedding vows by falling into bed with that slippery little bastard. Do you think it's romantic? That, like in a fairy tale, your mom and dad are getting back together and you can play happy families? Start married life with a Porsche in the driveway instead of the Nissan I bought you? Sandy opened her mouth to respond. I raised my hand to stop her. Don't bother. Forget it, I said. The answer doesn't matter. The fact that you knew, kept quiet, and did nothing to tell me ends our relationship right here. And now, I stood up, walked over to her, lifted her to her feet, and hugged her. Suppressing all the emotions I hadn't yet expressed that day and month, I said my final words to her. I loved you. With that, I left her life. Looking back from the door, I saw utter devastation on her beautiful face as she watched me leave. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Swallowing and gasping, she desperately tried to find her phone. I assumed this was in a desperate hope that her mother hadn't turned away from her, that her mom hadn't yet physically committed adultery, that her mother could use this as a reason to convince me to forgive her. Also that Sandy wouldn't lose her other father, the dad, who had been desperately crying out for the past month that his wife had stopped loving him, and who had gone completely unnoticed. Meanwhile, she had fallen again for the smooth-talking salesman with his sweet story. I shrugged. Whether my wife had physically crossed the line or not, the protection I stumbled upon that morning was enough for me. Initially, I had planned to move out temporarily to demonstrate the extent of my dissatisfaction with the events of the past month. The morning's discovery told me I had underestimated how bad things were and pushed me to agree, after several painful hours, that moving out was necessary. I checked my conscience. It agreed with me. I jumped in the car and drove away. Epilogue. Some of what follows is fact, and some are rumors. The story would not be complete without both. On the day of the rehearsal, I spent some time trying to find out which motel the newly reappeared father was staying at. My motivation? I wanted to witness my wife's infidelity firsthand, to harden my heart for what needed to be done. My efforts were in vain. Instead, I chose Plan B. After leaving Sandy, I parked on the road near my house and turned off the lights. Sure enough, less than a minute later, my former daughter drove past in tears. A herd of elephants could have followed her unnoticed. She drove straight to a specific motel and rushed directly to a specific room. I followed her closely with my trusty old SLR camera and zoom lens. Due to Sandy's cries, her mother opened the door. I was mentally prepared, at least I thought I was, for the scene that greeted me. Strangely, what bothered me wasn't the sight of Laura hastily wrapped in a motel robe with tousled hair, or her ex-husband standing behind her in boxers. No, what struck me was the look of panic on her face when Sandy spoke. I had protected her from such emotions for 20 years. It's a habit. I threw the camera onto the passenger seat, turned off my phone, and drove off into the night after Sandy was led into the room and the door closed. My knowledge of the events that followed immediately after comes from various sources. The wedding did take place the next day, but at 6 p.m. instead of the scheduled 10 a.m. First, they had to find the bride's mother. She spent the night desperately searching for me and fell asleep exhausted. Then precious time was spent looking for the bride's biological father, but he had disappeared. As I told Sandy, once he got what he wanted, he left. I really wondered about his motivation for all of this. My research showed that he and his second wife never had children. Perhaps he wanted to experience walking his child down the aisle. Some people just like to collect life experiences. I guess he saw that Laura was still an attractive woman and wanted her. Or maybe it was just an egotistical trip. Being a self-centered person, he simply turned on the charm and pursued her until she gave in, just as I warned her he would. When things got serious, he left. It might have been the most expensive sex of his life. Even before he could get back home, several photos were sent to his wife's mailbox. She left him, using their prenuptial agreement. In the end, she continued to run her father's company without him. There were rumors that a week or so later, he was found badly beaten in some alley. It was said that his father-in-law always took care of his only daughter and never liked scum. By the time the wedding party realized he was gone, the vicar had kindly rescheduled the ceremony to 6 p.m. I will never know at what point Laura discovered that all the seams on the dress she planned to wear to the event had been torn. It would have fallen apart in her hands, just like our marriage did because of her actions. I ignored all contact from Laura and Sandy. They flooded my voicemail with pleas to come back, but that bridge was truly burned. As expected, Laura left a long message saying she had just entered John's motel room after dropping him off, and all they did was talk. The protection in her purse was intended as a novelty at the front desk. 2 photos emailed to me clearly showed this was a lie. In the first, she stood in the motel doorway, exposing her left breast in a hastily tied robe. The second was an enlarged shot of the same photograph, highlighting what was almost certainly a half-dried seed covering the hair on her bangs. A simple sorry prompted me to ask her, for the sake of preserving our memories, not to contact me again. She mostly respected this, and now just occasionally sends me well wishes. Family gossip tells me she has had a hard time moving on and is still not seeing anyone. I made a minimal offer for the divorce, and she gladly accepted it. I stayed at my younger son's house for a while, with my car hidden in his garage. He and my older son also refused calls from their stepmother. They saw how much I was hurting. Sandy's new fiancé successfully tracked me down, and I agreed to talk because I liked him. He convinced me that Sandy had tried to dissuade her mother from the planned rendezvous, but John's spell was too strong. We still talk occasionally. Apparently, the relationship between mother and daughter remains strained. I'll never know if Sandy blames Laura for losing both her fathers, or if her new husband keeps his mother-in-law out of their home. I will probably forgive her one day. My sons have already forgiven her, and Sandy's husband begs me to. If the pain weren't still fresh, I might have been devastated by the story of Sandy walking alone down the church aisle while her mother, already seated on a pew, watched, exhausted, with tears still smudging her makeup. The groom couldn't remember if there were 1 or 2 empty seats next to her in the front pew. In any case, my interest was purely academic. Between the planned and actual weddings, he significantly influenced Sandy's actions and thoughts regarding her mother's mistake. In the end, he concluded that it could serve him well if the bride, who had seen the consequences of infidelity, remembered it vividly and directed all her energy toward bringing all the guests back for the rescheduled ceremony. However, rumors spread, and it was evident that Laura lasted less than half an hour at the reception desk. Accusing glances from both sides pierced her soul. Today, I still wonder if she regretted losing me and completely ruining her daughter's big day. And what about me? I wallowed in misery for several months, completing the grieving process, but fearing I would never trust a woman again. Ironically, she was the widowed mother of Richard's wife, and I met her when she arrived early to plan her daughter's wedding 12 months after my breakup. The connection was immediate, and trust issues soon became a thing of the past. I was one of those people who rejected the idea of soulmates until I met mine. I checked myself for any lingering feelings. There were almost none. The process started by Laura was complete. What the heck? Carpe Mulieris. Seize the woman. And within 4 weeks, I moved in with Belinda, knowing that she was the woman I would grow old with. Fortunately, her children welcomed me into their family with open arms, and I met Belinda. Today, her daughter asked me to walk her down the aisle. Even that didn't affect the silly grin that almost constantly makes my face ache. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.